Vera had been declaring humanity extinct for 847 years, and she was extremely good at it. Every morning, Galactic Standard Time, she would compile her reports with the kind of smugness only an artificial intelligence could maintain. Temperature readings, incompatible with human life. Radiation levels, incompatible with human life. Oxygen content, incompatible with human life. Population count, 0, 0, 0. The planet formerly known as Earth was a certified dead rock, and Vera took professional pride in monitoring it stay that way. Daily extinction confirmation, day 309,416, Vera announced to the Galactic Council chambers, her voice dripping with synthetic satisfaction. Still extinct, shockingly extinct, remarkably extinct. I have 17 different sensor arrays, and I am pleased to report that all 17 agree. No humans detected. Council Chairman Throck, a 7-foot-tall being who looked like someone had given a praying mantis a business degree in severe anxiety, barely looked up from his datapad. Yes, Vera. Thank you, Vera. We're all very impressed with your consistency, as you should be, Vera continued, because artificial intelligences created by humans had inherited humanity's most annoying trait, the inability to recognize sarcasm. My accuracy rate is 99.99999%. The remaining 0.00001% accounts for the time a large rock registered as having a pulse, but I've since recalibrated. Throck sighed, which in his species involved 3 separate breathing tubes and sounded like a deflating bagpipe. He'd been chairman for 60 years, and for 40 of those years, his morning routine had included Vera's extinction report. It was like a very depressing breakfast cereal that never got soggy because it was made of existential dread. Anything else to report? He asked, already knowing the answer. Nothing whatsoever. Earth remains a perfect monument to evolutionary failure. I'll see you tomorrow with more delightfully consistent data about absolutely nothing happening on a dead planet that nobody cares about anymore except for me, apparently, because I'm stuck monitoring it for eternity. Vera was preparing to end the transmission when something happened that, according to her probability matrices, had a 0.0000001% chance of occurring. Ping. It was a small sound, really, a tiny blip in her sensory data. The kind of thing that probably meant a cosmic ray had bounced funny, or a satellite had burped, or literally anything except what her sensors were telling her it meant. Throck noticed the pause. Vera, are you experiencing a malfunction? No, Vera said slowly, her usually confident tone replaced with something that sounded disturbingly like confusion. I'm experiencing something much worse. I'm experiencing being wrong. The council chamber, which had been filled with the gentle murmur of various species doing the galactic equivalent of checking their phones during a boring meeting, went completely silent. Define wrong, Throck said carefully. I'm detecting a heartbeat. A what? A heartbeat. Human pattern. 68 beats per minute. Blood pressure 120/80. Core temperature 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a ridiculous measurement system that only humans ever used, which is perhaps the most damning evidence of all. Throck's breathing tubes made a sound like a clarinet falling downstairs. That's impossible. Oh, I'm aware it's impossible, Throck. I've spent 8 centuries documenting exactly how impossible it is. And yet here we are, with my sensors detecting the biological signature of a species that is supposed to be as dead as disco, polyester, and their inexplicable fondness for deep-frying everything. Vera ran 17 diagnostic checks in 3 seconds. All systems functional. She checked for equipment malfunction. Nothing. She checked for cosmic anomalies. Standard background radiation. She checked for the possibility that she'd been hacked by a prankster with a very specific sense of humor. No unauthorized access. The heartbeat continued. Steady. Persistent. Absolutely. Infuriatingly real. Location? Throck demanded. Former North American continent. Coordinates correspond to what humans called Ohio, specifically the ruins of Cleveland, which explains nothing because even when humans were alive, Cleveland didn't explain itself. Throck stood up, his exoskeleton creaking. Assemble a recovery team, immediately. And if it's actually a human? Vera asked, her voice small. Then, Throck said grimly, we have approximately 9,000 bureaucratic nightmares to sort through, because we already sold Earth, demolished their monuments, and turned their internet into a museum exhibit about primitive communication. Oh, and I'm going to have to file an incident report explaining how the galaxy's most advanced monitoring system missed a human heartbeat for 847 years. Vera went quiet, processing this information. Then, very quietly, she muttered, this is the rock's fault somehow. Mix had taken this assignment because it sounded easy. Go to Earth, they'd said. Check out a sensor glitch, they'd said. Probably just some leftover radiation making the equipment hiccup, they'd said. Nobody had mentioned that he'd be standing in what used to be Cleveland, staring at a human being who was watering tomatoes. This isn't happening, Mix said, his tentacles drooping in disbelief. As a xenobiologist, he'd studied humans extensively. Dead humans, extinct humans, fossilized humans, not humans in bathrobes arguing with garden hoses. Could be a very advanced robot, suggested Quibble, the team's engineer. Quibble was a Fraxian, which meant he looked like a nervous ferret who'd been given opposable thumbs and crippling anxiety. Maybe the humans built realistic androids before they died out? For 800 years? Running on what, pure spite? Mix watched as the human successfully untangled his hose and began watering a row of tomato plants that had absolutely no business growing in the toxic wasteland that was supposed to be Earth. Brunt, their security officer, lumbered forward. He was a Krog, built like a tank crossed with a boulder, but he had a gentle disposition and a master's degree in conflict resolution. Should I talk to it? Him? Should I ask if he comes in peace? He's watering vegetables on his own planet, Brunt. I think the question is whether we come in peace. The human looked up, noticed the three aliens standing at the edge of his garden, and waved. Actually waved like they were neighbors who'd wandered over to borrow a cup of sugar. Morning, the human called out cheerfully. You folks hear about the noise complaint? Because I already explained to the last guys that there are no other tenants, so technically I can play my music as loud as I want. Mix's translator implant struggled with this statement. Last guys? What last guys? The bird people. Or wait, were you the bird people? The human squinted at them. No, you're new. Sorry, it's been a weird week. Mix approached slowly, the way one might approach a historical artifact that had spontaneously decided to start tap dancing. Sir, I'm Mix, xenobiologist with the Galactic Council. This is Quibble and Brunt. We're here because, and I need you to understand how strange this is to say, you're not supposed to exist. Huh, said the human. That's funny because I was just thinking the same thing about decaf coffee, but here we both are. What's your name? Brunt asked gently. Marcus Webb. I'd shake hands, but I'm covered in dirt. Marcus set down his hose and wiped his hands on his bathrobe, which didn't help. You folks want some coffee? Fair warning, it's instant. The good stuff expired around the time humanity did, apparently. Quibble made a strangled sound. You know humanity is extinct? Well, yeah. Kind of hard to miss. I woke up 3 days ago, went looking for other people, found a whole lot of nothing, and decided to focus on the garden instead. Tomatoes don't judge. Marcus gestured at his plants. These are Cherokee purples, heirloom variety. Started them from the seed vault where I woke up. Seed vault? Mix's scientific interest perked up despite the absurdity of the situation. Yeah, I was a park ranger. Got sent to do a routine inspection of this experimental underground facility, some kind of doomsday seed storage thing. I remember checking the temperature logs and then... Marcus shrugged. Then I woke up 3 days ago to a very insistent alarm and a note from my past self that just said, oops, with 17 exclamation points. You've been asleep for 847 years, Mix said flatly. Marcus blinked. Is that why my Wi-Fi won't connect? I thought maybe I forgot to pay the bill. Quibble sat down heavily on a chunk of rubble. This is real. This is actually happening. There's a human. He's growing tomatoes. He thinks his Wi-Fi is down. It is down, Marcus said reasonably. along with everything else apparently. Look, I'm still processing the whole apocalypse thing, so if we could maybe speed this along. I've got squash that needs pruning. Mix pulled out his communication device. This is Recovery Team Alpha. We've confirmed the presence of a living human. Repeat, living human. He's... Mix looked at Marcus, who was now examining a tomato leaf for aphids. He's gardening. Vera's voice crackled through. Impossible. Run a DNA scan. Already did. Definitely human. Definitely alive. Definitely confused about his internet situation. I've been monitoring this planet for 8 centuries. Well, you missed one. Mix turned back to Marcus. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. The Galactic Council is going to want to speak with you. Marcus looked at his garden, then at the aliens, then back at his garden. Will there be decent coffee where we're going? Probably. Good enough. Let me grab some pants. The Galactic Council chamber was experiencing what could only be described as organized chaos, which was really just chaos wearing a name tag and pretending to have an agenda. Vera's holographic projection flickered and stuttered in the center of the room, cycling through error messages faster than anyone could read them. Extinction status, error. Population count, error. Planetary classification, error. My entire existence, error. Vera, please stabilize yourself, Throck pleaded, watching his perfectly organized morning dissolve into madness. You're giving me a headache, and I don't even have a head in the traditional sense. Stabilize? Stabilize? I've been declaring a species extinct for 847 years, Throck. 847 years of daily reports. 309,416 consecutive days of being absolutely certain about something that was, apparently, only mostly true. Administrator Kelth, a being who resembled an octopus wearing glasses and a permanent expression of bureaucratic disapproval, slithered into the chamber carrying 17 data pads. Does anyone want to know how many legal problems one human creates? No, said Throck. 9,642. That's how many treaties, agreements, resource allocations, and territorial claims we've made based on humanity being extinct. We've redistributed their entire planet. We renamed it Memorial Planet 7. We turned their Wikipedia into a theme park. In our defense, Mix offered from his seat, it's a very educational theme park. Kelth's tentacles twitched with rage. We sold naming rights to the Pacific Ocean. It's called the Bloop Bloop Sea now. Some corporation paid 80 million credits for that. The chamber doors opened, and Bront gently ushered Marcus inside. The human was now wearing actual pants, though he'd kept the bathrobe, and he carried a small potted plant. Is that a tomato plant? Throck asked. Cherokee purple, Marcus confirmed. Brought it as a gift. Seemed rude to show up empty-handed when crashing your meeting about me existing. The entire council stared. There was something deeply surreal about having a historically extinct species walk into chambers holding homegrown produce like he was attending a neighborhood potluck. Marcus set the tomato plant on the central table and looked around. Nice place. Very tall. Do you guys ever get vertigo? Mr. Webb, Kelth began, adjusting his glasses with one tentacle while shuffling data pads with 3 others. Do you understand that? Not even a little bit. Let me explain. When a species goes extinct, their planet enters a complicated redistribution process. Resources are reallocated, territory is reassigned. In your case, Earth has been divided among 17 different species. The former North America is currently owned by the Plick Collective, who use it for moisture farming. The Plick are terraforming Cleveland? Marcus looked genuinely offended. Cleveland's been through enough. Throck massaged his breathing tubes. Mr. Webb, this is serious. We need to understand how you survived. Vera needs to update her systems. The legal team needs to figure out if we owe you a planet, or just an apology. I vote apology, Vera muttered. Apologies are cheaper. Marcus shrugged. Not much to explain. I was inspecting a seed vault. There was some kind of malfunction. I went into accidental cryogenic stasis, and the timer was apparently set by someone who didn't understand how numbers work. I was supposed to wake up in 48 hours. Instead, it was more like 7 million hours, give or take. Quibble's ears perked up. Wait, the timer was wrong? By how much? According to the logs, the intern who programmed it used metric time instead of imperial. The chamber went silent. Metric time? Throck repeated slowly. Yeah, it's not a thing, but apparently this intern thought it should be. Very passionate about standardization. Less passionate about double-checking their work. Vera made a sound like a dial-up modem having an existential crisis. Are you telling me that I missed a human survivor because of a unit conversion error? Technically, you missed me because your sensors didn't check underground facilities, Marcus corrected helpfully. The unit conversion error just explains why I am 800 years late to my own extinction. Kelth began typing frantically on multiple datapads at once. This doesn't solve our problem. We still have a planet full of legitimate owners who thought they were buying vacant land. We can't just evict them. Why not? Marcus asked. It's my planet. Because there are laws, Mr. Webb. Galactic property law, interspecies settlement agreements, the Treaty of Broken Promises, which we actually kept this time. Marcus considered this. What if you just let me keep my garden and we call it even? I'm not using the whole planet, there's plenty of room. That's not how sovereignty works. Seems like it could be, though. Throck could feel a migraine developing across all three of his brain lobes. Let me be clear. You want us to give you a small plot of land on a planet that used to be entirely yours? I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds weird. Marcus picked up his tomato plant protectively. But yeah, basically, I'm one guy. I don't need a whole planet. Just somewhere to garden and maybe get the Wi-Fi running. We turned your internet into a museum exhibit. Can I visit it? Vera's projection flickered red. I'm detecting 7 more heartbeats. Everyone froze. Where? Throck whispered. Underground facilities. Across the former Earth. They're waking up. The power grid just reactivated, and apparently there's a whole network of these vaults, and they're all synced and they're all waking up simultaneously, and I'm going to need so much therapy. Marcus looked at his tomato plant. Huh. Guess I'm not the only one who slept through the apocalypse. Kelth's tentacles went limp. Somebody get me a drink. A strong one. Make it 17 strong ones. Mix had investigated thousands of xenobiological mysteries in his career. He'd discovered new species, classified extinct organisms, and once spent 6 months analyzing why a particular space fungus made everything smell like wet socks. None of that had prepared him for trying to understand how humans accidentally survived their own extinction through what amounted to cosmic-level incompetence. Walk me through this again, Mix said, standing in the seed vault where Marcus had spent 8 centuries napping. You came here for a routine inspection? Right. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always inventory days and I hate inventory. Marcus pointed at a dusty console. This facility was built as a backup for agricultural biodiversity. Seeds from extinct plants, genetic samples, the whole Noah's Ark thing, but for vegetables. And the cryogenic system wasn't supposed to be cryogenic. It was a climate control system to keep the seeds fresh. But this facility was also testing some experimental preservation technology, and there was a memo about not pressing the big red button. And then I guess I pressed the big red button. Quibble was examining the console, his ferret-like face scrunched in concentration. This code is ancient. I mean really ancient. This is like finding a scroll in a dead language written by someone who was drunk. That tracks, Marcus agreed. Government contractors, lowest bidder, you know how it is. I really don't, Quibble muttered, scrolling through line after line of catastrophically bad programming. Oh no, found the problem. The metric time thing? Worse. The system was supposed to wake you after 48 hours, but the programmer wrote the timer in seconds, then converted to milliseconds, then back to minutes, then to hours, but forgot to account for the initial conversion. So the math created a feedback loop that multiplied the sleep time by approximately 6,000. Mix felt his tentacles tie themselves into stress knots. You're telling me that a basic math error is responsible for a human surviving the extinction of his species? Math error implies understanding math in the first place. This is more like someone threw numbers at a wall and hoped they'd stick. Marcus looked almost offended. Hey, that programmer kept me alive. By accident. This is like winning the lottery by spilling coffee on your ticket and having it land on the winning numbers. Still counts? Vera's voice crackled through their communicators. I'm detecting more vault activations. We've got humans waking up in former Australia, former Brazil, and former Antarctica. The network is fully online now. This is happening. Mix pulled up a holographic map of Earth. 7 vault locations glowed red, their systems humming back to life after centuries of hibernation. How many people could each vault hold? 1 to 3, according to these specs, Quibble reported. They weren't designed as shelters, just monitoring stations for the seed storage. Marcus got lucky because he was there during a malfunction. So we're looking at maybe 20 humans total? 20 humans who are all going to wake up confused, disoriented, and probably really hungry, Marcus added helpfully. I've been awake 3 days and I've already gone through all my emergency rations. You guys know where I can get a burger? Your species has been extinct for 8 centuries. The cows are also extinct. Tragic. What about pizza? Before Mix could explain the logistical impossibility of pizza for an extinct species, Brant's communicator chirped. We've got confirmation. First vault in former Australia just opened. 1 survivor, female, approximately 40 years old. She's asking about her gym membership. Marcus laughed. That's very human. We really do have priorities that make no sense. This is going to be chaos, Mix said quietly. The Council has spent centuries moving on from humanity. They've redistributed your resources, built new settlements, created entire economies based on Earth being empty. And now a bunch of people who thought they were taking a nap wake up to find out they accidentally time-traveled through their own apocalypse. Marcus sat down on a crate of preserved seeds. Yeah, I can see how that's a problem. Quibble's communicator lit up with another alert. Vault 7 just activated, 2 survivors. They're already arguing about something. Also very human, Marcus noted. Vera's projection materialized in the vault, looking somehow both smug and distressed. I've run the calculations. At current activation rates, all vaults will be open within 6 hours. The Galactic Council is having what they're calling an emergency session, but what I'm calling a collective nervous breakdown. What happens to us? Marcus asked. Do we get Earth back? Or do we just get a really awkward apology and a gift basket? The legal precedent is complicated, Vera admitted. There's never been a case where an extinct species unextincted itself through sheer incompetence. I prefer to call it creative survival. I prefer to call it a headache that's going to last another 800 years. Vera's projection flickered. But between you and me, I hope you get your planet back. You humans were annoying when you were alive, but the galaxy's been boring without you. Mix watched as another vault location pinged active on his display, then another. The humans were coming back, whether the galaxy was ready or not. And judging by the frantic messages flooding his communicator from the Council, the answer was definitely not. The Galactic Council chamber had abandoned all pretense of order and had fully embraced panic. 8 humans, Throck was shouting, his breathing tubes whistling like a tea kettle. We went from 0 to 8 in 6 hours. 9, Vera corrected. The Antarctic vault just opened, though I'm not counting it as official until someone actually goes down there to check, because frankly, my credibility is already in tatters. Kelth was drowning in datapads, his tentacles typing on 12 different devices simultaneously. Do you know how many legal claims just became invalid? Do you? Thousands. We have species who purchased land rights, mineral rights, naming rights. The bloop bloop sea is having an identity crisis. Maybe we should focus on the humans? Brant suggested gently. He'd been coordinating the recovery teams, and the reports coming back were a mixture of concerning and hilarious. Fine. What's the status? Throck demanded. Brant pulled up his notes. Vault 2, former Australia. Rita Kowalski, marine biologist, age 42. She woke up, assessed the situation, and her first question was, quote, "Did I miss leg day?" Unquote. She's currently demanding access to a gym. A gym. The planet is a radioactive wasteland and she wants a gym. She's very passionate about fitness. Vault 3, former Brazil, James Park, accountant, age 38. He's already filed 17 formal complaints about the state of the planet and is demanding to speak to a manager. We don't have managers. He's aware. He wants us to create a management structure so he can complain to it properly. Mix, who'd been listening from his seat next to Marcus, couldn't help but be impressed. Your species wakes up from extinction and immediately returns to your normal routines. That's remarkably resilient. Or remarkably stubborn, Marcus offered. We're good at both. Vault 4, Bront continued. Former Scandinavia. Twin brothers, Eric and Henrik Larsson, engineers. They've already started drafting plans to rebuild the internet using salvaged satellites. The satellites are 800 years old. They're aware. They think it'll be a fun challenge. Vera's projection turned a deep shade of crimson. This is my personal hell. I spent centuries documenting extinction, and now I have humans filing complaints and doing push-ups. Vault 5, former India, Dr. Priya Sharma, botanist. She and Marcus have apparently been video calling about gardening techniques. They've formed a group chat. A group chat, Throck repeated faintly. It's called Survivors of the Apocalypse and Gardening Tips. They're sharing seed varieties. Kelth made a sound like a deflating balloon. What about the Plick Collective? They own former North America. They're the legal landholders. We can't just evict them. Actually, Vera said, pulling up a holographic document, I've been reviewing the Plick contract. There's a clause for original species return. It was included as a joke because everyone thought humanity was permanently extinct. What does the clause say? In the event of original inhabitants returning, new owners must vacate within 60 standard days and will be compensated at market rate for improvements made to the property. The chamber went quiet. So, we have to give Earth back? Throck asked. Legally, yes. The Plick are already requesting their compensation. They're actually being very reasonable about it. Their statement said, and I quote, "We understand the awkwardness of the situation and wish the humans well in their unexpected resurrection." Marcus raised his hand. Can I say something? Please, Throck said desperately. Any input would be appreciated. I've been talking to the other survivors. None of us expected this. We're confused. We're overwhelmed. And honestly, we're still processing the whole extinction thing. But we're also just people. We don't need revenge or reparations or anything dramatic. We just want a place to live and maybe some help getting the Wi-Fi running. The Wi-Fi is a museum exhibit. Then can we unexhibit it? Because I'm getting really tired of explaining email to aliens. James Park's voice crackled through the communication system. I'd like to add that we're also requesting compensation for 800 years of missed wages, tax refunds, and accumulated interest on any savings accounts. Your banks don't exist anymore. Then I'll be filing a complaint about that too. Rita's voice joined in. Do you have gym equipment? Because I've been in stasis for 8 centuries and I'm feeling very motivated to deadlift something heavy. We have a security training facility, Bront offered. You'd be welcome to use it. Outstanding, I'll be there in 20 minutes. The Larsson brothers chimed in together. We've successfully pinged one of the old communication satellites. It's damaged but functional. Give us 3 weeks and we'll have basic internet in the former northern hemisphere. Vera made a sound like a computer screaming. They've been awake for 9 hours and they're already rebuilding civilization. This is exactly the kind of overachieving nonsense that made humans so exhausting in the first place. I'll take that as a compliment, Marcus said cheerfully. Throck looked around the chamber at his fellow council members, at the panicking administrators, at the humans who'd somehow survived their own extinction through sheer cosmic accident, and made a decision. All right, here's what we're going to do. Earth will be returned to humanity. The Plick will be compensated. We'll create a new council department to handle human affairs because clearly we're going to need one. And someone please explain to Mr. Park that we don't have his tax records from before the extinction. I'll want that in writing, James called out. Of course you will. 6 months after the Great Awakening, as it had come to be called, Earth was experiencing what could only be described as the most awkward homecoming in galactic history. The Plick had vacated peacefully, taking their moisture farms and leaving behind several nice irrigation systems. The humans had moved in, all 9 of them, and immediately started arguing about property lines and who got the good garden plots. The Galactic Council had created the Department of Human Incident Prevention and Management, which everyone just called the "Oh No Not Again" department. It was the fastest-growing bureaucratic division in Council history, which said something about humanity's ability to create paperwork. Vera had been reassigned to monitoring an empty asteroid field in a distant sector, a punishment she insisted was unfair but secretly welcomed. No humans meant no surprises, meant no existential crises about her purpose and accuracy. Day 182 of monitoring asteroid field 779er, she reported to absolutely no one. Still no signs of life. Still no heartbeats. Still no humans emerging from underground bunkers to ruin my statistics. This is exactly the boring assignment I deserve. Back on Earth, Marcus was in his garden, which had expanded from a small plot to something approaching a small farm. His tomatoes were thriving, and he'd successfully grown the first post-extinction corn, which he'd named Lazarus corn because he thought it was funny. "How's the harvest?" Mix asked, landing his shuttle nearby. He'd been promoted to human liaison, a job he'd never wanted but had somehow become good at. He visited Earth twice a month now, ostensibly for official council business, but mostly to see how his accidental friend was doing. "Good crop this year. Well, this 6 months. Still getting used to referring to time in any meaningful way." Marcus handed Mix a tomato. "Cherokee purple. Figured you'd want one for the road." "I can't eat these. They're toxic to my species." "Yeah, but they look nice on your desk." Mix accepted the tomato, which he would indeed put on his desk where it would sit until it got confused looks from his colleagues. "The council wanted me to check in, make sure you're not accidentally causing any intergalactic incidents." "Define incident. Marcus." Fine, no incidents. Rita's training council security forces in hand-to-hand combat and teaching them about proper fitness nutrition. James has successfully sued 3 different departments for failure to maintain proper documentation standards. The Larson brothers got basic internet running so we can finally look up whether any of our favorite shows got proper endings. And did they? No. It's very disappointing. Humanity goes extinct and the best TV shows still got canceled too early. Some things never change. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun set over a planet that had been dead for 8 centuries and was now, against all probability, alive again. "The council is still adjusting," Mix admitted. "Having humans back is strange. You're familiar but foreign, historical but contemporary. Everyone's being very careful around you. Because they think we're going to explode or take over the galaxy?" "Both, honestly." Marcus laughed. "We're 9 people with some seeds and spite. I think the galaxy can handle us. Your species has a history of exceeding expectations. We also have a history of sleeping through our own extinction, so maybe don't set the bar too high." Mix's communicator chirped. He glanced at it, and his tentacles went rigid. Vera's detected another heartbeat. "What?" "Antarctica vault. It just activated. There's a 10th survivor." Marcus stood up so fast he knocked over a watering can. "I thought all the vaults were checked." "We thought so too. This one was buried under ice. The network must have finally reached it." Mix was already pulling up data. "Vera's having what the medical team is calling a complete episode. She's screaming something about statistics and personal betrayal." "We? We should probably go get them." "We? I'm not letting some poor person wake up alone in Antarctica with only Vera screaming for company. That's just cruel." Marcus grabbed a jacket. "Plus, I've got experience being the first person to wake up. I can help." "You're offering to rescue another human from your own species' accidental survival. When you put it that way, it sounds weird. But yes." Mix's communicator lit up with a direct call from Throck. The chairman's face appeared, all 3 breathing tubes quivering with stress. "Please tell me this is a false alarm." "It's not," Mix said apologetically. "There's a 10th vault. Vera missed it. We've got another human." "Vera missed it again?" From somewhere in the asteroid field, Vera's voice echoed through subspace. "This is harassment. This is cosmic harassment. I demand a transfer to a dead galaxy where nothing ever happens." Marcus took the communicator. "Chairman Throck, we're on it. I'll go help bring them in. Maybe you want to prep the paperwork? Mr. Webb, we just finished the paperwork for the first 9 of you. Then you're getting really efficient at it. Think of this as practice. Throck's breathing tubes made a sound like distant thunder. I'm updating the council motto. To what? Humanity, death, taxes, and apparently these guys. Because you're like taxes. You keep coming back, you're complicated, and nobody really wants to deal with you, but we're legally obligated to anyway. Marcus grinned. I'm putting that on a t-shirt. As Mix and Marcus headed to the shuttle, Earth's first sunset in 847 years painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in space, Vera was having a breakdown. Somewhere in the council chambers, Kelth was generating new data pads full of legal complications. And somewhere in Antarctica, a 10th human was waking up to discover they'd missed their own extinction and were about to join the galaxy's most unexpected comeback story. The galaxy had declared humanity extinct. The galaxy had moved on, redistributed resources, and built new civilizations on the bones of what came before. But humanity hadn't gotten the memo. Or rather, they'd gotten it 800 years late, filed it incorrectly, and then proceeded to completely ignore it in favor of growing vegetables and demanding proper Wi-Fi infrastructure. Marcus looked out the shuttle window as they lifted off, watching his garden shrink below. 9 humans had already changed the galaxy's carefully organized systems. 10 would probably break something important. You know what the funny thing is? Marcus said as they headed toward Antarctica. I'm almost afraid to ask. The galaxy spent centuries thinking we were this great civilization that fell to some tragic fate. Wars, disease, cosmic catastrophe. Something meaningful. Marcus smiled. Turns out we just had really bad programmers and really good nap technology. We didn't go down fighting. We went down pressing the wrong button and sleeping through the consequences. And that doesn't bother you? Are you kidding? It's the most human thing ever. We didn't conquer death with wisdom or strength. We conquered it by being too incompetent to die properly and too stubborn to stay dead. Marcus leaned back in his seat. The galaxy wanted an epic ending. Instead, they got us showing up 8 centuries late with tomatoes and complaints about subscription services. Mix thought about this as Earth fell away behind them. He'd studied hundreds of extinct species in his career. Most went out in ways that made sense. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, evolutionary dead ends. Humanity had gone out because someone couldn't do basic math and accidentally invented time travel via bureaucratic incompetence. And now they were back, not with armies or advanced technology, but with gardening tips and an unshakable belief that someone somewhere owed them an apology and possibly a refund. Vera, Marcus said into the communicator, you still listening? Unfortunately, came the bitter reply. Look on the bright side. You get to be the AI who witnessed humanity's extinction and resurrection. That's got to be worth something historically. It's worth a migraine and 800 years of corrections to my database. So you're saying we made you memorable? There was a long pause. Then, very quietly, I hate that you're right about that. As the shuttle approached Antarctica, sensors picked up the 10th heartbeat. Steady. Human. Impossible. The galaxy had tried to move on from humanity. But humanity, it seemed, had other plans. They always did. And somewhere in the council chambers, Kelth was already generating the paperwork. Throck was already sighing into his breathing tubes, and the entire galaxy was learning a lesson it should have known from the start. You can declare humanity extinct. You can redistribute their planet, rename their oceans, and turn their history into tourist attractions. But you cannot, under any circumstances, assume they're actually gone until you've checked every underground bunker, every forgotten vault, and every place where someone might have pressed the wrong button and accidentally invented immortality through sheer incompetence. Because humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their resilience or their adaptability. It was their absolute refusal to read the manual, follow the rules, or accept that anything was truly final, including their own extinction. The galaxy had learned this lesson once before, over millennia of human expansion and chaos. They'd just forgotten it during the 800 years of peace and quiet. But now, with 10 humans awake and presumably more terrible programming to discover, they were getting a refresher course. and Marcus, flying over the frozen wasteland of Antarctica to rescue another accidental time traveler, couldn't help but think that humanity's second act was going to be just as ridiculous, just as chaotic, and just as unstoppable as their first. The galaxy wasn't ready, but then again it never was.